We have a packed show for you guys this week. We're going to be sitting down for an interview with Chris Buechler from the pfSense project to learn how easy it can be to deploy a BSD-based firewall. We're also going to be showing you a walkthrough of the pfSense interface so you can get an idea how convenient and powerful it is. And of course, we're going to have answers to your questions and the latest headlines. All of it's going to be happening right here on BSD Now, your place to be, SD. BSD Now, episode 25, a sixth pfSense, recorded February 19th, 2014. Hey, I'm your host, Chris Moore.
And I'm Alan Jude.
Oh, glad to have you guys back with us this week. Got a lot of stuff to bring to your attention, some cool headlines, so we're going to get right into that. First up, we have conference alerts. So if you've not heard by now, you've probably been living under a rock. We've mentioned it several times, but Asia BSD Con's in a couple weeks. Yeah. So in March. So if you can come on out to that, please do so. You can hang out with Alan and me.
Right. Registration just opened on Monday. So
yeah, it did. So get registered, get your hotel lined up, get everything all set. You need to be there. It's going to be an awesome conference. But also, I guess they just announced Euro BSD Con and the dates for it. So it's going to be in Sofia, Bulgaria at the end of September. And they also just issued their call for papers. So if you're interested in presenting something, you're working on something neat, you probably should present it, then please go ahead and fill that out and get them the talk submission so they can evaluate it and hopefully get you out there.
Yes, and yes, that's the best part is if you submit a paper, then, you know, you get flown out to the event and put up and have all the good stuff.
Which is probably why they had 3 times as many papers for Malta last year.
Yes, they had so many papers. They were like, what's going on?
Yeah, well, I guess everyone wanted to go to Malta, which was neat. But yeah, so if that's something you're interested in, check out the links post-show. You can hit that up. Look at the call
if you're good to go now, Asia BSD Con happens in what, a month? Not even? Yeah, a little bit less than a month.
Like, I leave, I think, on the 9th. So yeah,
I leave on the 10th. And so it's... the registration's open now. You can do that. If you're thinking, well, that's not enough warning. Well, A, we told you before, but B, Euro BSD Con is announced now, and it's, you know, but like 6 months from now. 7. No, more
that's not the only options, of course. If you're a North American listener, I mean, you got BSD Can.
Yes, BSD Can is in May. The call for paper is already closed, but registration will be open very soon, and that's one of the biggest conferences along with Euro, and it's great. And
Alan and I will be out at that one as well. I think all 3 most likely this year, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, Euro's the only one I'm having to struggle with. I'm hoping to be able to make it.
Yeah, I still got to submit my paper. Fingers crossed. Hopefully everything works out there, and then I'll be at Euro.
What's your paper about?
It's going to be the one I'm doing in Tokyo, talking about backups, replications, ZFS.
Yes. Awesome stuff.
Bare metal restore, important things.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Okay, so that's some of the conference news. Next up, we have a cool article about FreeBSD 10 on the Edge Router Lite. So what's this about, Alan?
Yep. So this is actually running FreeBSD 10 on a little embedded device. The Ubiquiti Edge Router Lite is a little device that costs less than $100, has 3 Ethernet ports, and runs the FreeBSD MIPS port. And it's got a 500 megahertz MIPS 64 processor, 512 megs of RAM, 4 gigs of storage on removable USB. And it's, you know, the little box people have always been looking for to run their tiny routers off of.
That's really cool. So I guess it goes through the whole process of the installation, configuration, how to use it. He includes scripts to create your own images as well. So if you don't want to use the ones he rolled, for whatever reason, that's kind of cool.
Well, if you want to run current on your little Edge device, and they have pictures of the inside because that's what everybody wants to see.
Yeah. Ooh, pretty circuits and stuff, yeah.
It's very clean. There's not very much on it, really. There's like a bunch of Ethernet ports and a tiny processor and a couple of controller chips and nice little serial console.
Yeah, so for $100, you can basically replace your consumer router. Yeah. How about that? That's pretty cool.
And, what
you
still get
ports are on it? Are they gigabit?
I'm just trying to see if it said here specifically about the Ethernet ports.
Cool. Well, as usual, though, if you're more of an OpenBSD guy, we've already done a tutorial on how to set that up on a router. So you can refer back in the show notes.
And I'm sure OpenBSD has a big MIPS support.
Oh, I'm sure they do too. But yeah, cool. Definitely hit up the link afterwards, though. Some neat information if that's something you're interested in doing. That's kind of a cool, fun weekend project to take part of your Saturday and do.
Yep. And apparently it even has hardware accelerated crypto.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's really slick. Cool. Okay. Well, next up we have Signed Package Source Package Guide. We have the link here to the site. I guess it might be a little confusing at first. It's blog.saveosx.org/signed packages. So don't know why it ended up there, but cool.
Well, I think package source is also used on OS X.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So we got a request on IRC for some more package source stuff on the show, and so a listener provided a little bit of a write-up on this. So that's kind of cool. We appreciate getting feedback from you guys. And it's going to show you how to set up the signed packages with package source, which works well on a number of OSs, not just NetBSD.
Yeah, that's package source is from NetBSD, which is all about portability. So package source actually runs on almost any OS to build and compile the packages you need.
Yeah, that's really cool. So the article goes through the process of how you'd sign them with a public key, how you'd verify the packages when you install them, and the author also happens to be an Edge BSD developer. So that's kind of
the lead Edge to be.
The lead.
Yes.
Okay.
And we were expecting to have an interview with him in not too distant future as well. So
how long has Edge BSD been active now? When did they fork off?
I think we covered them doing that on the first or second episode.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
So
we'll get them on the show and see what's going on.
Basically, they forked NetBSD because they wanted to be more aggressive and change it up. It kind of reminds me of PCBSD.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah,
push stuff a little faster.
Yeah, and then it can be once that gets it stable, and then it gets sucked back up into the upstream.
Oh, cool. Okay, so what's next? We got an OpenBSD hackathon I hear about?
Well, this is the one that happened in New Zealand, but we have 5 more reports that people submitted about what they did while they were there.
Oh, cool.
So the first one here is about working on the QLogic fiber channel driver and some USB Octeon stuff and getting ARM to work with AHCI. And then next report talks about work on interrupt handlers without holding a kernel lock, and also some Spark 64 improvements, among a bunch of other things.
Well, that's neat.
Lots of stuff there.
Updated libdrm.
Yep. The third one comes from JSG, and he updated libdrm and Mesa to give better DRI support in X. So they're working on improving their graphics stuff. Specifically, it looks like they're working towards the R600 class of Radeon chips.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Getting caught up with the hardware there.
Yep. The fourth report, DLG, came with the intention of improving SMP support, but instead got distracted and worked on SCSI.
Oh, hey, since why not? They both start with S. It's the same thing, right?
Yep.
Cool. So
well, that's the thing about the hackathon. You always show up with one plan, and then somebody says something, and it causes an idea, or something really interesting comes up, and you go crazy.
Or you end up looking at the code, and you're like, well, I want to fix this, but it ties into that. Oh, that needs fixing worse.
Yeah. And then the last report comes from Claudio, and he was working on ribs and fibs, which are additional routing tables, to have multiple routing tables, and what do they call routing domains? They call them in OpenBSD.
Cool. Excellent. So I guess that's the weekly headlines for this week. Yes. So as usual, we want to mention our sponsor, IX Systems. This episode was brought to you in part by them. You can go hit up ixsystems.com/BSD Now to find out more information about them. But we want to mention few cool things that they're doing. So what's the first one we have here, Alan?
So the first one was John Hickson went out to FOSDEM, but also Scale. And he got interviewed while he was there. So they have a cool interview with John Hickson, who
nice.
I suppose we'll have to interview at some point.
Yeah, we're going to get him on here. I got stuff to talk to him about. That's good.
Yes. He'll be in Asia again, probably?
As far as I know, he's coming to Tokyo. So maybe we'll pull him aside and grab an interview there.
Yeah. In Poland, I think was the first time I met him, and he convinced me to come to Meet BSD. And I will continually thank him for that.
Yes.
That was great. They also have their pictures from NYC BSDCon.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like
I was there.
Yeah, they wrote a couple recaps as well.
You can see the back of my head there. I'm wearing my Open ZFS shirt.
Nice.
Yeah. And then they have some recap from FOSDEM, an actual write-up on their blog, and one from NYC BSDCon, because Drew was there, and we'll have to probably get her to talk to us about something as well.
She's gonna be in Tokyo as well, along with Jim Brown, who's between the two of them, we can talk about BSD cert stuff, documentation.
I did the beta or a beta test of the BSD professional exam there. It's like they had a little external hard drive, and I made sure it worked on my laptop because they're still trying to pick hardware. But the fact that they have a pre-installed image and the graphics and everything loaded up on my machine goes to show that it works pretty good.
Cool. Well, there you go. Drew, John, and Jim, you're on notice. We're going to hunt you down in Tokyo.
Oh, yes.
Get an interview while we're there.
And for Christmas, I got a fancy recorder, actually the same one that Will Bachman uses for BSD Talks.
Oh, nice.
So we can hook that up instead of that stupid microphone.
Does it look really funky? Are you going to get stopped at security again?
No. It's definitely much sleeker than the...
It's not like the Space Orb of Power anymore.
No.
Whatever that was.
But anyway, back to the point. IX Systems sells servers, and you probably want a server. Servers are good. And all their servers are especially good because they have a QA process that makes sure that the hardware is actually functioning as it should before they ship it to you. And all their servers are powered by the best Intel processors.
Definitely. So again, that URL is ixsystems.com/BSD Now, where you can get more information as well as getting a handy guide on how to purchase a server to run open source on. Lots of cool tips when you go shopping and figuring out how you're going to get your vendor to build a box for you. So just go ahead, hit up that link, and IX Systems will be glad to help you through that process.
Yep. And I think the biggest thing is to remember that they do servers of all sizes, from a little FreeNAS Mini like you have at your house, and the other Chris has at his house for editing and stuff, up to things like I bought, the giant $18,000, 120 terabyte storage array with 128 gigs of RAM, or
how are you just showing off, Alan?
Well, or the thing,
making me feel inadequate here.
The FreeBSD Foundation bought, right? With the, what was that, like 80 cores?
Now I feel very inadequate.
80 cores, a terabyte of RAM, and all that crazy stuff. So
yeah, IX Systems can do that and everything in between.
Yep.
So again,
and they even build desktops. Michael Lucas was like, I need a desktop that I can run all the BSDs on, and it's going to need lots of hard drives in case I start, writing a book about disks and how to partition them and stuff. And, doing that with scrounged together computer parts is just not fun.
Well, they'll make sure they get you the motherboard that's got, the right NICs that work with good driver support and good video card and
especially the
else.
disk controller that doesn't have a bug in it. Yep.
Next up, we're joined today by Chris Buechler from pfSense. Glad to have you with us today, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. Hey, could you give us a little bit of background on yourself? How'd you get involved in BSD getting started?
I've been working in IT for over 15 years. My early career was mostly focused in Windows, worked some with Linux in the 90s, and frustrations with Linux distributions led me to discover the BSDs about 2000 or so, and that's been my OS of choice ever since. Run a lot of servers, routers, firewalls, etc. On mostly FreeBSD since then. And in 2004, I co-founded pfSense, which is what most people in the BSD world know me for.
Cool.
So what exactly is the pfSense project, and why was it created, and what's the backstory there?
We're an open source firewall distribution based on FreeBSD, entirely managed from a web interface. We're comparable with various commercial firewalls like Cisco ASA, SonicWall, WatchGuard, etc. The BSDs and a lot of various add-on user lane components, they make a great firewall solution, but tying all those pieces together to make everything work as it should is easier said than done. Our code base has all kinds of logic that ties everything together seamlessly. depending on what various events happen, a number of other things have to happen to accommodate that. For instance, if you have a WAN IP change, then there are several things that may need to happen depending on your configuration. Maybe update a dynamic DNS host names, maybe restart VPNs that are tied to that interface's IP. If there are other services bound to the WAN IP, they may need to be updated, et cetera. Where there's a lot of glue there that you just don't have in a stock BSD. You'd have to throw together some custom scripting to handle that kind of stuff. So that's where we make things a lot easier in handling all that kind of glue on the back end to make it easier for people to deploy things along these lines. And it can also be difficult to manage, especially for people who aren't comfortable with BSD or command line at all. Some of our user base are hardcore BSD people who ran stock BSD firewalls previously, but they were tired of having to make all the changes themselves. So switching to pfSense allowed them to delegate that work to some of their colleagues who are familiar with commercial firewalls in general, but not CLI or BSD people necessarily.
Right. Cool. If they need something on the weekend, they can add a port forwarding rule instead of you having to come in on the weekend to do it for them.
Exactly. Yeah, I've heard from a lot of really hardcore BSD people who just got tired of getting calls at 3 a.m. or on a Saturday or Sunday or something because they were the only person who could actually make changes to the system, and that's no longer the case with pfSense.
Cool. So what kind of hardware does it run on? And then, of course, what hardware does it run best on?
Most any x86 hardware is supported. We include all the drivers of the base FreeBSD version that we use, and in some cases we'll backport newer drivers from newer versions. So where they fix issues or add support for new hardware or things along those lines. And what works and what works best, those are potentially two different things. Some hardware manufacturers only extensively test their hardware with Windows, where you may not expose problems specific to non-Windows OSs, and Linux and the BSDs can suffer in that regard. So, and there are certain combinations of hardware that don't play nicely with the specific FreeBSD-based version we're using, though the individual components are supported, or sometimes a specific combination of hardware works, but doesn't perform as well as it should for some reason or something along those lines. So the best possible hardware is the platforms you can get direct from us at store.pfsense.org. There's 3 of them that we're offering at the moment, and we'll have more there in the not too distant future. And those have been tested, and they will be tested with future releases before the release comes out. So you won't have any surprises with any kind of hardware-specific issues whenever you upgrade, because we'll have it all tested and make sure everything works before the release comes out.
Cool. So is pfSense more targeted at like home and small office users, or more like a data center as a replacement for a Cisco?
Everything in between, really. We have users across the entire range. Our focus is the business market in general. Development is driven by what we see as important to the business market. And that also makes a product that's suitable for home use, but that's not really what we focus on. Right. We have deployments in a wide range of areas, businesses in every industry imaginable, universities, government, companies with co-location space where they have a half rack or an entire cage or anything in between, or one of our more common support customers. In such environments, you really want the ability to handle very large numbers of simultaneous connections, upwards of 1 million. And commercial firewalls, once you get to 1+ million simultaneous connections, are very, very expensive, nearer into 6 figures US per system, and then double that if you want high availability. So there are several customers that we work with where if they got the same scalability on commercial firewalls, they would be spending $300,000-$400,000 potentially per data center for a redundant pair. And where it's even throwing in commercial support and in the hardware and everything, it's sub $5,000 to get the same kind of scalability.
Right. If you want your pfSense to handle more sessions, add more RAM.
Yep. Yep. About 1 million connections per gig of RAM. So you just throw 4 gigs of RAM in a box, and all of a sudden you can handle as many connections as a $100,000 Cisco ASA.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that's where we've used it for a couple of different things. Like we have one where the web server had to be connected back at the co-location, had to be connected to the domain controller at the office. And so we set up a VPN with 2 pfSense boxes. That way the customers could deal with it and not just, depend on us to keep that VPN working.
Yeah.
Or, the government here had a Cisco ASA that they didn't size properly, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, this can only do 150 megabits a second of traffic. Well, why don't you take that spare development server there, and we put pfSense on it, and now it'll pass a gigabit.
Yeah, there you go. That was easy.
Yeah. Plus, we get all this extra flexibility and other useful bits.
Mm-hmm. So who all is involved with the project? How big is the team working on this?
Many people contribute in some fashion. Jim and Jamie Thompson and I are the partners in ESF, the company behind the project, and we're ultimately responsible for the direction. The bulk of the development work is done by people on our payroll, primarily Ermel, Lukey, Renato, Bateau, and Jim Pingle. And there are many others who contribute, sending pull requests to our GitHub with code fixes, new features, etc. We've had upwards of 200 people, I believe, that have contributed in a variety of ways with code on GitHub. And there are a bunch of users who help people on our forums, mailing list, IRC channel, various social media outlets like the pfSense subreddit, our Facebook group, Google Plus group, LinkedIn group, etc. And a lot of people also contribute to testing of snapshot builds prior to a release. Others contribute financially via store.pfSense.org and portal.pfSense.org. Everyone can help in some fashion. We have a Get Involved section on our website, www.pfSense.org, and there's information on there on how people can get involved.
Cool. So is there a particular reason you chose FreeBSD over, say, OpenBSD when you were starting to build this?
That was a decision made in 2004. Certain things were significantly different than what they are 10 years later, but the same reasoning still largely holds. At the time, FreeBSD PF was faster than OpenBSD PF. That's changed back and forth over the past 10 years. With a single core CPU today, OpenBSD might be faster, but good luck finding a single core CPU in a new system today. They just don't exist. With multiple CPUs and FreeBSD 10, FreeBSD should be significantly more scalable. We'll be measuring that more in the near future as work on our next release continues. In 2004, wireless support in OpenBSD was seriously lacking, and it was unclear at that time whether that would ever improve. It has, but FreeBSD has as well, and it stays significantly ahead in some regards with wireless support.
Sure.
And having started from Monowall's code base initially, there's some portions of the system that are FreeBSD dependent. Our code base has diverged significantly from Monowall in the last decade, but we still rely on some functionality that only exists in FreeBSD, such as IPFW for our captive portal, since it supports filtering on MAC addresses, and our captive portal enforces IP to MAC association.
Cool. Have you considered doing a version based on OpenBSD's updated PF?
We are going with what's in FreeBSD, and that's kind of being developed independently at this point. It's not that FreeBSD has a older version or isn't up to date or something like that. It's really started to be developed on its own with the SMP scalable PF and FreeBSD 10. It's likely that FreeBSD PF will be a fork from this point, not brought up to date with OpenBSD. So it's independently developed, and in a lot of ways it's it is superior and will continue to be so as things are continue to be developed.
So you said the SMP improvements in FreeBSD 10 made a big difference. When might we expect to see a pfSense based on 10?
That's what we are working on right now. So our 2.2 release will be based on 10, and that's a work in progress right now. Hopefully have some snapshots available for the public in the next month or so, roughly, and hope to see a release within about 3 months, roughly.
Right, because I guess you'll be running up to the FreeBSD 8.3 end of life, right?
Yeah, we do tend to support the FreeBSD versions past when the security team supports them, like we did with 8.1. Once it was past end of life, we backported a couple of, well, I think actually only one applicable security update that was necessary for our 2.0x releases now with 2.1 on 8.3. Hopefully there's no security advisories past the end of the end of life, but if there are, we can continue to maintain it as we have in the past.
So to what extent does pfSense really diverge from the vanilla FreeBSD code base?
We have about 40,000 lines of diff files and kernel patches. Some of them had functionality that doesn't yet exist in any of the stock BSDs. Some of those fix specific problems impacting our users and their use cases in that particular FreeBSD release. And some of those is also driver backports from newer versions where they fix issues or add supported hardware or something along those lines.
Yeah. So how closely does pfSense follow, FreeBSD's release cycle and security updates and things like that?
We don't match or near match FreeBSD's release cycles the way PCBSD does. For example, we want to be closer to the latest FreeBSD version of what we've been historically, and that's why we're making the jump to 10 for our next release. And I expect that we'll stay more up towards the most recent FreeBSD release from here out. But yeah, the changing versions tends to involve a good deal of work, so we stick with a version once we get on that version.
I guess one of the biggest changes going to 10 would be the change in the whole package system, right?
Well, we use PBIs, so that does impact us to some extent because the stuff that's in the actual base system is not PBIs, but all of our add-on packages in the package system are PBIs, so that didn't really
that
change.
Solves most of your problems then.
Yep. Yeah.
There you go. So what other cool new features or things are we looking at in the next version?
It's still a bit up in the air at this time. The biggest thing is getting onto the FreeBSD 10 base, since that brings us more hardware support and potentially non-x86 hardware as well, and improved performance and scalability. And that, in and of itself, is a decent chunk of work. Beyond that, we have some other plans that aren't really final at this point. So we'll have more info coming out as we get more through the development. And,
stay tuned, basically.
Yep. Stay tuned. Yeah.
It depends how long what we have to do first takes to get finished, right?
Yep. Yeah. We really want to get this release out quickly to get the benefits of FreeBSD 10 out to everyone. And so yeah, we want to get that part of things done, and then we'll see how much time do we have left and what things do we want to do from there.
Yeah, so
I don't see us adding a whole lot of features in this release just because we want to get FreeBSD 10 out there for everybody.
And I don't know that there's that many more features to add. You have almost everything.
That's it too. We're kind of reaching the end of the list as far as things that we could possibly add.
Yeah. So I guess you mentioned a little bit about the website there, but is there anything people can do to get involved and help the project, or what you currently need?
Yeah, I encourage everyone to check out store.pfSense.org, where we have a hardware, merchandise, like shirts, USB flash drives, stickers. Also, portal.pfSense.org, we have gold subscription there and support as well, commercial support. Our gold subscription includes access to the 2.1 version of the book in PDF, MOBI, and EPUB format. Includes our secure offsite backup service, autoconfig backup, and attendance at subscribers only monthly hangouts that we have. Our February hangout this Friday at 1 p.m. U.S. Central Time. I'll be talking about VPN selections, which options are available, when each is most appropriate, and then get into an introduction to IPsec. And,
nice. Cool.
More info on that on our blog at blog.pfSense.org.
This week's tutorial is going to be a basic overview of pfSense, one of the most popular appliances based on FreeBSD. I just finished the install, which is very, very simple, And we're now configuring our pfSense for the first time. So on our WAN interface, we can select our connection type. Mine's a cable modem, so DHCP. You can specify a specific MAC address. If you, depending on your ISP, you might have to try to match the MAC address of the device the pfSense is replacing in order for it to pick up without having to call your ISP or whatever. You can also do static configuration or whatever other configuration might be needed. Then we have our LAN side. I'm putting mine on my existing LAN, so I've given an IP address and a subnet mask. I'm going to set our admin password. You should use a stronger one than I'm using in a tutorial. And now this will load our pfSense with all the changes. Taking its time. And there we go. See our little dashboard. And we see that we're running pfSense 2.1. Which is, you have the latest version based on FreeBSD 8.3p11 with all the latest patches. And we can see our MBUF usage and so forth. Now, if we go and look at our interfaces, we can see on our LAN interface we have a bunch of options. Specify the MTU if you support jumbo frames or something like that. Choose whether you want to allow internal networks to transit this interface. But most of the cool stuff is under firewall. One of the neat features is creating an alias, which allows you to basically enter, say, the static IP address of a printer or a file server or something, and then give it a logical name, so that when you're creating rules, rather than have to remember which IP address is which machine, you can just reference the names. Then if a machine ever changes its IP address, or its role or whatever, you can then just edit the alias and it'll automatically update all the rules that reference that name. You can do the same thing for ports and for URLs. Then you have your NAT rules. If you're going to create any port forwarding, that's what you would do. You would just add a new port forward here. And we can say, you know, we want to, on our WAN interface, we want to allow TCP, and with the destination being our WAN address, on, say, we'll allow incoming connections for HTTPS. Say we're running a web server. So now incoming connections to our WAN server, our WAN IP address on the port for HTTPS, which is 443, should be routed to the web server I have over here. And you can choose to redirect to a different port if internally it's running on a different port. Ours isn't, so we'll leave it. And NAT reflection, you have the option of, so that when you're inside the LAN and you connect to your external IP address, normally that doesn't work, but you can use NAT reflection to allow it so that even if you're using, say, the DNS that points to your external host name, it'll still get redirected to the right machine, instead of having to do split horizon DNS or something like that. So we'll create that. Set this to HTTPS, and then save. Now, so we've added that change. Now we just have to click apply, and it will reload our firewall rules, and we'll be notified that it's good to go. We can also create regular firewall rules. You know, for example, here on our WAN interface, we're not allowing any traffic inbound coming from private IP addresses, since that's the internet, and we know that there won't be any traffic from those coming in, and any that is fake. And we see it automatically add an address or a rule allowing incoming HTTPS to be redirected to our web server. And then on LAN, we can see that the LAN is allowed to go out to the internet for everything. And you can create additional rules to restrict what your LAN is allowed and not allowed to do. You can also create schedules. For example, block your kids from using the internet after a certain time or something like that. A very popular one is traffic shapers. You can use by interface, by queue, limiters, and things like that, especially layer 7. For example, you can restrict certain applications from using all of your bandwidth. So we'll enable, say, FTP, stop FTP from hogging their connection. Just say, we'll say that we want FTP to get blocked there. So now you won't be able to use FTP from inside the LAN. See that. Also has a handy wizard here for different types of traffic shaping. So if we create a new limiter, for example. Here's the one we're interested in. Create a new limiter for our little brother's computer, saying that he's only allowed to use, say, 2 megabits. It's 2 megabits per second. And if you have a schedule, you can set it up so you can say, you know, you can have this much during prime time and this much during another time. You don't need a mask and description or whatever. Save that. And now we have a limiter. Now I think if we edit this rule, yes, now we can point it at our limiter. So now FTP will be limited to 2 megabits per second. Probably should have created those 2 rules in the other order. That's why the limiter tab is before the layer 7 tab. But anyway, so that's how you could, say, limit traffic for a certain protocol. So you can, for example, throttle torrents that are being used by other people on your network to slow speed during prime time and then let them untapped at night. You know, like similar to what an IP. You can also create virtual IPs, which are basically a way to do one-to-one NAT mappings and also to configure CARP so that you can create a consistent external IP that routes to different internal IPs based on which servers are up and things like that. pfSense is also very popular as a VPN because it can do all 4 major types of VPN: IPsec, L2TP, OpenVPN, or PPTP if you need it, although I recommend against using PPTP for security reasons. So this is, you can use to just drop a pfSense box somewhere on a second network, and now you can use the pfSense to bridge between the two. And you can either pass just traffic or create an actual bridge and pass broadcast traffic depending on what your needs are. And it handles all of that configuration for you, and it has a handy wizard that lets you do everything. So what type of pfSense do we want to set up? We'll set up one with local user access because we don't have a central database here. We'll create this. It's called BSD Now. Just make a nice fat certificate, good for 10 years. And just create that. Which one did I mess up? I don't know. I'll just fill it out quick then. There. Here's the certificate. There we go. Now we got the So we want to set up our OpenVPN to listen on our WAN so that we can get connections from the internet. We'll set it up for UDP for better speed, set the local port, description if we want one, whether we want to do authentication on the TLS packets, you know, all that fun stuff. Set our encryption algorithm, you know, go for a little blowfish. If you have a hardware crypto card, you can enable that. You can set up your tunnel network. What IP ranges do you want it to use? Do you want clients to have dynamic IP addresses, or do you want them to retain connections if their IP address changes? So this way, if clients are roaming or something, they can keep the VPN connection that will persist even though their source IP address changed. You can set the configuration that the clients will get from the TCP server and so on. I have to set that up quick. Now we can add the firewall rule and the OpenVPN rule to allow traffic. And you can also, there's a package called the OpenVPN Client Export Package that'll create the certificates and stuff that you need to actually install the client on your OpenVPN setup. And that's how you do a VPN. And you can get various status information. I don't really have any traffic flowing through my pfSense, but when you do, these become pretty good graphs. And you can see all the other stuff you might be expecting, including historic graphs of traffic. You get diagnostic like the ARP table. See the various machines on my network. You do packet captures, check the state tables, all that kind of fun stuff. And that's pfSense. The easiest way to create a nice, powerful BSD firewall, but still have a web interface so that other administrators of the network can manage things like your port forwarding rules.
Now it's time for the weekly news roundup. So first off, we have an article series we've been following, the FreeBSD Challenge. So our buddy over at the Linux Foundation's continuing with his switching to the BSD journey. So what's he done this last week, Alan?
Yep. So he's did day 13, 14, 15, and 16 of switching to FreeBSD.
Okay. Let's see, what did he do? Day 13, some tips for new users, trying things out in VMs.
Yeah. And then, the next day he did some other stuff, playing with XFCE and X11 and all that stuff. Day 15, he finished up XFCE and using different versions of ports with different names and how that works. Like, cool. You know, how we offer more than one version of the same application, whereas on Linux, usually you're stuck with whatever version they decide.
Yeah.
And then day 16, he got into jails, which is where all the fun is.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Wonder if he referenced any of our tutorials on that. That might be neat.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Well, next up, we have some new BSD book information for 2014. Yes. So BSD books are some of the highest quality technical writings available, and our friend Michael W. Lucas has written a good number of them. So he's posted something here detailing some of his plans for 2014. It looks like he's got at least one OpenBSD book that's pending, as well as one FreeBSD book, and wait for it, a very strong possibility of absolute FreeBSD 3rd edition.
Yes.
So that is fantastic. Good for you, Michael. I hope that does make it out this year. That would be really cool.
Yeah. So one of the things he's looking at doing is a bunch of smaller books with a slipcase.
Sure.
So that, you know, they can get done faster and you can get them faster, because people, you know, would rather have a bunch of small books. It's easier to read a small book than a big book.
Sure.
And, you know, once you've finished the small book, you're ready to start the next small book. And in the end, if it's the same as the big book, then... But yeah, he's still deciding on what some of the topics should be. So if you know, have a specific request, I think he's looking for ideas on that.
Oh, cool.
I discussed it with him a little bit during our trip and dinner for at NYC BSDCon. And he says he'll be coming to BSDCon, but he won't be going to EuroBSDCon ever again. He does not.
Oh.
He does not like airplanes at all.
Well, yeah.
And he said it messed him up pretty bad.
All right. Well,
You know,
Canada's still
he
good, though.
enjoyed
It's
the
just a short flight.
conference. You know, the conference was great, but yeah, he doesn't like traveling. He's like,
it's the getting there and back that.
yeah.
Just really,
So he's like, I'm going to BSDCon because I can take a train.
oh, there you go. That's one way to look at it. He's coming from Detroit, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's not super far.
No, once he gets to Windsor, it's the same train I would take.
No, I feel him though, man. Every year I've done Tokyo 5 times now,
Yeah.
and every year I swear says I'm not getting on this plane again. Like it's about a 14.5-hour flight. from
Mine's
where
only
I'm at.
13 hours, but
Oh, well, lucky you. But you know, it's one of those flights where you get about 6 hours into it. You've already watched 2, maybe 3 movies at this point,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh gosh, I've been sitting here forever. Surely we're almost done. You look at the flight and you're like, not even halfway.
yeah, I wrote like a white paper or something on my flight there last year. On the flight home, I managed to actually sleep, which was a new thing for me.
Yeah, I did
It's
that
very
first year, too. I was
disorienting
so
sleeping on an
jet-lagged.
airplane.
Yeah, the first year I went, I fell asleep taking off from Tokyo and actually woke up over Chicago. So I was just so
Yeah.
jet lagged. I was only there for 3 days, I think, for the conference.
Well, yeah, that's what happened to me. Is like
So-
I got there the Friday night, and the conference was Saturday, Sunday. I stuck around Monday and then left on Tuesday, and it was a little crazy. So this year I'm doing it smarter. I'm getting there a couple of days ahead of time so I can be awake by the time the Dev Summit starts.
Yeah, I insist on that. Going to Tokyo, I
Yeah.
have to have at least one full day
Yeah.
before the conference to adjust.
Yeah.
And especially being outside helps
Yeah.
with the jet lag. But
Well, because that's what I
anyway.
tried to do that in Poland the first year. It was like, well, let's walk outside in the bright sun because it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. No,
Sure.
we made the mistake of after that we were just still so tired from the walking and stuff. We went and fell asleep, and it screwed up our sleep
Oh.
schedule for like 4
Oh,
days.
no.
Luckily,
Yeah,
we
you
got
can't
it
do
back just in time for the start of the conference.
Yeah, you can't do that. That'll mess you up.
No,
That first day, you have to tough it out.
Yeah. Well, we fell asleep at like 4 in the afternoon and woke up at 9,
no.
which is fine. But
Oh.
then that night we couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Or no, the next day we slept until 2 in the afternoon. We should have forced ourselves to get up, and then we would have been fine. But anyway, yes. Next
Yep.
story.
Next story, anyway, since this isn't just a travel show, right?
Yes.
Okay, how to build a FreeBSD EC2 images. So what has Colin been doing?
Yeah, so he pushed his scripts for building the EC2 images up into the port tree. Until now, he built the official FreeBSD
Sure.
EC2 images because they were kind of complicated. Now they've got uncomplicated enough that he could actually just make a tool and let everybody do it. And this way, if you have a customized version of FreeBSD that you want to push into an EC2 image, it's fairly easy. Or I wonder if this wouldn't allow to easily deploy, let's say, a FreeNAS EC2 image.
Oh, that would be kind of cool. Yeah, I'd have to see how he does that.
Yeah. Or I wonder if
Very
you
cool.
could make like a PCBSD desktop as a cloud desktop. So you like VNC into
Yeah, you
the
just
virtual
VNC
machine.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose if you have good latency, I mean, it would kind of be lousy if your connection's not so good.
Right. Well, part of the thing with EC2 is that they have lots of locations, right?
Sure. Yeah, I don't see why not. That's
that could
definitely
be
possible.
An interesting. Well, because Amazon's trying to sell those now, right? Amazon desktop things.
Yep.
And,
I'll have to look into a script, see if that could be adapted to what we're doing, how we build it. So, okay, next
Speaking
up,
of
we also...
PCBSD.
Yeah, speaking of PCBSD, just our little weekly blurb about that. So this last week, we posted a new feature digest, lots of new information on there, in particular on how to become a developer. We've really revamped our developers page, wiki page, lots of cool new info there on how we do things, where code is, how you can get it, compile it, contribute, get stuff, etc. There's also some details on there about the length of supported releases, how long we're going to support different versions, and some new information on lots of new features coming in 10.1, which we're currently working on at the moment. So again, check the link after the show, and that'll take you to the blog.pcbsd.org site where you can check that out. So very cool. So next up, we'll be back with feedback and questions in just a moment. Okay, next up, time for feedback from you guys in the audience. So first up, we got a kind of a follow-up comment from Sean this week talking about NS Lookup. So I guess in regards to NS Lookup being depreciated, he mentions that, I guess let me read through this a little closer here. But of course, dig is better to use, but it made someone really mad, of course, when NSLOOKUP was not in 10.
Yeah.
It looks like it's been
They're
resurrected.
talking about resurrecting it in bind 9.9.
990. Okay.
Huh.
So that'll be interesting.
Interesting choice, just because the tool doesn't do what most people think it does, and it's like the interactiveness is usually not what you're actually looking for. But if people want to use a tool, then there's not a good reason to deprecate it. Then I suppose just because you don't like it isn't a good enough reason.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So thanks for sending us that info, Sean. Yeah. Next up, we have something from Jake, who's asking about BSD education and politics. I'll let you read this one here, Alan.
Says, thanks for the podcast. He's been interested in BSD for a while, and the podcast has been the final push to get him to jump in with both feet. He's been happy with PCBSD on his main desktop for a couple of weeks, and he thinks he likes it just fine. The only hang-up he's having is getting 3 terabytes of data from an ext4 drive onto his ZFS pool. But apparently some creative partitioning is getting that done for him.
Oh, there you go.
He says he's met some of the people in the Linux world, and he was able to educate themselves to get decent jobs as admins and programmers and stuff. Can you think of any examples of this in the BSD world? Almost everybody. Most people came to FreeBSD, directly, and then eventually got a job with it. Although some people, I guess you started with FreeBSD at your job, right? You didn't really learn it before?
Yeah, the ISP, they kind of pushed it on me
right.
at the time, I was only, 15, 16, so I hadn't run any of it yet.
All right, and then so he asks, what do most BSD admins hold degrees in? Admins, probably not that many of them have a degree. Some of them probably do. I don't. The developers often have degrees in like computer science and things like that. But, for being a sysadmin, a degree isn't always the best choice anyway. I don't know. That was like a survey you'd have to do, and that's kind of just a weird
thing.
It'd
be interesting to get a survey like that and see what classes people took, what degrees, what colleges, etc.
Right. Here I went to college for network engineering and security analysis. And so that was literally 1/3 Windows, 1/3 Linux and BSD, and 1/3 Cisco. And it was just like, these are the things you need to know. And but by then I had already been a BSD admin professionally for a couple of years. I started when I got the internet. I guess I got into IRC, and then I got into running IRC servers. So I was using BSD, and then I turned that into a business, and that was while I was still in high school. So
sure.
Yeah, I'm not the best person to ask that question, but it'd be interesting to kind of ask people maybe at BSD Can or something. It's like, so what did you go to school for?
Yeah, mine was in business, actually. Yeah? Business information systems more than the programming. I mean, there was, a little bit of programming, one Java class, right?
Right.
But yeah, that was more interesting to me than some of the programming classes at the time, because it was on a lot of stuff that was obsolete. I was like, well, I'm already doing cool stuff like this. More current stuff in my job.
Yep. He says BSD folks seem to have together, I think it means get-togethers a little more than other people. He's anyway. He imagined the level of education you described is partly responsible. How are the politics around BSD? Everybody has arguments, but oftentimes that's just the fault of email not being a great communication mechanism.
Sure.
That's why we have the conferences, because when you can be in the same room as someone, you can, solve a disagreement much more easily, and it's just easier to communicate what you're thinking and make it happen.
Okay.
But the term bike shed was invented here.
True. True. Okay, so next up, we have something from Nicholas asking about ECC and ZFS. So first up, he's a longtime TechSnap fan. Became BSD curious after all the talk about ZFS. So he says, a few episodes of BSD Now, and he was turned. Yay, fantastic. Good to hear. He just switched to FreeBSD from Debian. He's loving it so far. So the question, in his opinion, is it worth having ZFS on a laptop without ECC? I've read a lot about flip bits and the risk of getting a corrupt file system, especially with large RAM usage. Would you guys use ZFS or stay with UFS? I hear you talking about ZFS on USB flash drives. It probably has the same risk when you move it around. Well, from our experience, Nicholas, I run ZFS on everything.
Same here.
Laptop, desktop. I have netbooks I've run it on. I've run it on 1 gigabyte of memory and run a desktop on that.
Right.
It's been fine.
Compared to like any other file system, you have the same chance of the not ECC of your RAM causing a problem. And with ZFS, you have a better chance of detecting it because of the checksumming.
Sure. Correct.
So I guess the risk is that when you are writing data a lot and it's getting buffered in memory, if it gets corrupted there, it gets written corrupted. But, that risk is there no matter what. So
no matter what you do. Yeah. There's really no reason not to at this point unless you just have some not enough memory. But again, if you can't get a hold of 1 gigabyte, I mean, that's kind of hard to do nowadays in any kind of new system.
Your system, you should really avoid 32-bit. So if it's 64-bit, then it's really hard to have less than 4 gigs of RAM today. So,
sure.
And with that, I've done it with 2 gigs before, and randomly sized drives and no redundancy. I don't recommend that, but I've done it. It's like I had like 2 1.5 terabytes, a 320, a 300, and a 200, and it's there. It wasn't fast, but it worked. And then when I replaced it with 4 3 terabyte drives, I was like, oh, that's so much faster.
Yep.
But there's a lot of talk about, ZFS needs ECC. It's like, it was designed for enterprise environment where you have that, but it's not that big of a deal, I would say. Yes. Chris and I both run ZFS on our laptops.
Yes, and when you go to a conference, most of the guys running FreeBSD on their laptops, I'd wager the vast majority of them are running
It just
ZFS,
gives you so much more flexibility.
Yeah.
I have concurrently FreeBSD 9.2, 10 Alpha 5, and 10 release on with the same home directory and stuff on my ZFS file system. And thanks to Chris's great work with the grub boot menus, I can choose which one I want to start when I boot up.
Sure. Very convenient. Speaking of which, that's a good segue into our next question here from Stefan. So I'll let you read this one, Alan. He's asking about grub specifically. I may have a couple answers for him.
This is a you question.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll take it. So he says, thanks for awesome hands-on oriented BSD commercial. Thank you. He said, keep up the good spirit. So he says he has an HP laptop, only boots the installer if AHCI is disabled in the UEFI firmware. No option. Weird. Be nice to stable trim, etc., etc. He gave PCBSD a whirl, which booted flawlessly and installed everything to his full happiness, except for the fact that his firmware does not boot GPT partitions in BIOS. So he was looking at doing something like gummy boot with UEFI, then booting grub2 UEFI, and then booting FreeBSD. So he was asking how you would do that or how you'd set it up. So using grub2, the way we do it is we do kFreeBSD direct load. We're not doing the chain loader.
Right.
Examples of that. So yeah, the documentation's a little skimpy if you're doing this with FreeBSD.
Yes. When I had a problem with my grub loader, when I upgraded to 10 manually with my horrible hackery, it's like trying to find the commands you can use in grub rescue mode is pretty difficult.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. But I mean, once you get the commands, they're really easy to use. Just finding them initially.
Well,
sucks.
it's like
so
I knew I had seen them before when I read the grub.conf generated by PCBSD. But when I looked through your GitHub, I couldn't find like an example one.
Yeah, so what I was going to suggest is there's a couple places you can look for it. If you're booting a ZFS system, you want to do boot environments and all that. I mean, if you've installed, you could boot up off our installer, import the zpool, and look at the actual boot grub.cfg file, and it's pretty much just spelled right in there how it works.
Load
the kernel,
load the module for GPT and ZFS, and then kFreeBSD it.
Assemble a menu around this and then kFreeBSD load. So you could take a look at that in our Git tree repo. If you look in the overlays, install CD overlay, and then boot grub, there's an example in there how we boot from DVD. That may not be as helpful in this case, but if you have trouble with it, just shoot me an email from the PCBSD site. I'll be glad to give you some pointers to how we do that. I'll even send you my config if you'd like.
That might be a good one to just throw up on the forum or something, so that
maybe we could just put that on the wiki even. Just here's an example of a bootable grub configuration using ZFS. But that's something we can definitely do. We'll see if we can get that posted out there for you.
Yeah, because that'll help me next time I break my laptop.
We will definitely try and do that. I think we're probably one of the primary users of using grub to boot FreeBSD using KFreeBSD Direct.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and post some info about that.
Yeah.
So cool. Hope we answer your question, Stefan.
Yeah.
So next up you got Antonio.
Antonio asks about BSD thin clients. He says he knows Linux has the LTSP that allows dumb or lightweight terminals to connect to a more powerful server on the back end. Are there any guides doing this with FreeBSD or PCBSD? His main goal is to set up a beefy server to control data and centralize all his backups, and then dumb clients would be just little Atom boards or maybe even Raspberry Pis that would just take care of connecting a display, keyboard, and audio, and mouse, and so on.
So on the PCBSD side, we have a thin client utility built in that'll either turn your system into a desktop thin client server or an install server. You'd probably want the desktop side. The downside is it doesn't do ARM, so you're not going to be able to boot up like a Raspberry Pi client or whatever.
But it should work on an Atom nicely.
Yeah, on an Atom, no problem. So, and it'll basically allow you to PXE boot. Everything gets run on the server, and then it'll NFS mount, etc. So that's probably a good starting place, and then you can always take our script and hack the heck out of it to do whatever you really want to do.
Yeah, if once you get the image, it's just a matter of building a vanilla FreeBSD that's ARM instead of AMD 64 to be able to do it on a Raspberry Pi. But yeah, that's you have all these cool tools I've never even heard of.
Yeah, there's lots of neat stuff in our tree.
You need like a catalog of them or something.
Yeah, we'll put that on the wiki. That's a good idea. Just a list of every single command we've developed and what it does.
I'm thinking more of like the NSA style shopping guide of really cool utilities.
Right?
Yes.
Cool.
Funny. Yeah.
Okay. So next up we have Chris.
Yes, Chris asks about getting into jail. He says, first he wanted to thank you guys for the great show. He's been listening for a while. It's really inspired him to get into BSD, being originally a Linux user. PCBSD has been his choice for learning and using BSD. He's always amazed at the help offered from the forums and get direct responses from BSD people that are, when we interview people and it's not just some guy on the forum, it's the guy we were interviewing that's answering your question. That always does feel a little special. He says, in fact, Chris has helped him out on the PCBSD forums.
You're welcome.
Yep. He says he's struggling a little bit with jails and is using our advice. His plan was to put Plex Media Server into a jail on his PCBSD desktop machine. Is that an okay use of jails? Yes.
That's how I run my Plex Media Server.
And that's how the plugin works on FreeNAS as well. Is it okay to run jails on a desktop? Yes. Even my laptop has like 5 jails on it. I have one just for testing ports that I'm playing with because I don't want to install and uninstall stuff on my base system. I put it in a jail so that it doesn't muck up my package database and stuff.
So he says he has some kind of problem when he's rebooting his machine. The jail's not coming back, even though it shows it is running. It won't let it shut down. That may be something it looks like you're using the Warden for. Maybe send me some debugging info about that.
Yeah.
Send it to our mailing list or just to me directly. I'll be happy to take a look at it for you.
It says that opening a command shell in the jail doesn't work. JLS doesn't show anything running. So then there's a jail is not running.
Started.
Yeah, a jail is not running at all if JLS doesn't show it. Because even if you just have init or, if you have top running as the only process in a jail and that doesn't even have an init running, that'll still make it show up in JLS. So if JLS is blank, that means no jails are running.
It's definitely not started. Yeah, definitely shoot us an email on that. Maybe
it says the command line to start the jail says it's already running. So I'm guessing that's just a stale PID file or something.
There's got to be a stale PID file or something somewhere. But,
so he asks, does a shutdown or reboot on the workstation gracefully shut down any running jails? It should, right?
It tries to, but then there's a timeout. So if the jail just sits there and hangs for too long, and eventually it just kills it. So yeah, that could be an issue.
So I guess you could try to shut them down manually first, but you shouldn't need to. And he says, is there a lock file that Warden's checking that's triggering this? And most likely that is what his problem is, right?
Most likely that's what's happening. Like I said, send me some info about your system. We'll take a look and figure it out. I'm sure
I've had
probably a simple fix.
Problem with EasyJail where I had it set to start up at boot, and I also had Puppet set to start the jail. And the jail took a little time to start, so Puppet thought it wasn't running and started it a second time. So the file that keeps the the name to jail ID mapping for EasyJail was pointed at the second one. So once I shut the second one down, I couldn't shut down the first one because so I had to just echo the jail number into that file and trick it into shutting down the right one. But yeah, it sounds like you might have just got into a condition where you have a stale log file that once you blow it away, you'll be all sorted out.
Yeah, we'll be glad to help sort that out for you, though. No problem. So just go ahead and get in touch with us again, maybe the bug tracker or on the mailing list, and we'll help you out.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, I guess that's all of our questions for the week. So as usual, we'd like to mention that, all the tutorials will be posted in their entirety at bsdnow.tv. So take a look at that post show. Also, our email backup is pretty much backlog's all pretty much caught up now. So if you have something you'd like us to put on the show, something you want to discuss, questions, story ideas, requests, go ahead and send it on in to
feedback.
See your feedback. Man, lost it there for a moment.
Yep.
Feedback at bsdnow.tv. Yes, it's the same address it's been this whole time.
Yep.
And of course, you can watch live Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC, if you want to see how we make the show before it gets cut up for the video later in the week.
Yep.
A couple things also. The OpenBSD router tutorial got a couple improvements and fixes in this last week. And also, just because our tutorial contest is over doesn't mean you still can't submit any. Of course, we'd love you guys to submit any tutorials. If there's something interesting you think people maybe want to know how to do on a BSD, feel free to send it in. We'd love to go through that in a future episode.
That's something I learned the hard way a couple of years ago. It's like whenever I'm setting up something new, I write down the documentation so that, a year from now when I break it, I can be like, how did I set that up again?
How did I do that again? That's right.
And, if you're keeping those docs for yourself, you might as well share them with everybody else. And yeah, so we've got 2 or 3 emails. People are like, oh, I missed the contest. Is it okay to keep sending you tutorials? It's like, yes,
sure,
please.
Of course. Please do so.
Yes, and if you have questions, ideas, or if you saw something interesting happen, we scour finding news for it. Mostly our producer does that actually, but we can't always catch everything. So if you feel something happened and it didn't get enough coverage, then let us know and we'll take a look at it.
Cool.
And
also,
we're always looking for more people to interview. So if you're doing anything interesting, let us know.
Also have some information about BSD Now t-shirts.
Nice.
So the design has been finalized.
Well,
we have the files.
Actually, we might have to change it.
We make more changes now?
Well, the printing process is complicating things.
Oh, okay. So that's what we're working out is the printing details.
Yes.
So we're hoping to have them available, early to mid-March.
Yes.
So we'll, of course, keep you updated on that as we get a little closer.
Yep.
And they will be ultra limited edition for hardcore BSD fans. So just a couple hundred will be printed.
Well, we'll be printing the number that get ordered. So, it's not like you won't be able to get one, but yes.
Sure. But anyway, so that's really cool. We'll, again, have more information on that in an upcoming show. So excellent. So that's the show for the week. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to talking at you again same time next week.